I've not received any letter to the contrary. So kindly be guided that if you feel aggrieved, and indeed there's a dispute between Jubilee and the other constituent parties of Azimio, do write the relevant correspondence to me, and for sure I'll be able to make a ruling in that regard. But as it is now, it is assumed in the absence of any registered dispute that indeed the list that has been tabled before, coming from the minority and coming from the majority, must have gone through the processes of nomination. So then the Senate cannot be dragged unless moved by a dispute within your coalition. Let's proceed that one. Senator Eddy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support this motion because, as we all know and as has been stated by everyone here, this is the most important committee for this House. The running of this House, as is the running of other committees, select committees of this House, are definitely determined by this particular committee. Above that, I want to register that the second session that we are going to have, given how we have started this session, will be critical to have some more ambitious, more ideological, more organized, and more dispassionate engagement. I say this because I've listened to our elders speak. I listened to Elder Aluale, who, with a lot of respect, was tempted to make what I would call an ageist comment. An ageist comment because if you think about the behavior of some members of this House who happen to be young, and they have behaved in an inappropriate way or an inappropriate manner, in both sides of the House, Mr. Speaker, I see wonderful senators who are equally young. I've had the opportunity to work with Senator Thangwa from the other side of the House, who is an amazing individual and a very well-leveled elder leader, and he's young. I've had the opportunity to work with Senator Tabitha, who is equally extremely talented, very passionate, very organized, and above all, committed to the function of this House. And she's young. I've worked in this other side with Senator Sifuna, who, by all means possible, is qualified even to be in that list and has always been very keen and pays attention to details, and he is equally young. I've worked with Senator Ezena, who is also very passionate about issues of the North, has advanced a lot of courses in the course of conducting businesses that regards the people who are marginalized in the North, and she's young. So I would want to urge us, as we start the businesses of this House, to not be lured into these ageist comments. It will be critical that this particular committee finds ways of weaving conversations that can make us a House that sees women, youth, any racial, all tribal communities as being able to contribute to this House. Mr. Speaker, I've also listened to the comments that have been made by a few members who are discontented with the agenda that the changes that we have had might have targeted some people, especially from the majority side or minority side. My heart bleeds, Mr. Speaker, when I listen to those comments, because the sanctity of this House is measured by how well we are alive to Article 27 of the Constitution. Article 27 of the Constitution invites this House to be able to ensure that in every dealing that we are having, we must ensure equality and we must ensure freedoms of all Kenyans. We are not here in those committees just to serve our parties. Our parties are mere vehicles that we used to get to this House. But the essence part of why we are in this House is because we have been employed by our bosses, who are the people of Kenya. If you read Article 27 of the Constitution, sub-Article 4, it clearly states that we shall not have a state that both directly and indirectly discriminates upon the people of Kenya. And where discrimination can be able to happen very easily in this kind of house is in writing the businesses of this house. You can be tempted to directly or indirectly discriminate against the people of Kenya by the agenda you bring in this house. And it has been said, Mr. Speaker, that the both sides of the house, both majority and minority, represent certain aspirations of our people in different ways. It cannot be that some members of minority, who, for whichever reasons that best fits them, have chosen to cross to the other side of the house, whether directly or indirectly, and then seek to still sit in the business committee. Mr. Speaker, we will be indirectly having more voices and having more agenda of the majority side represented in the business committee. Furthermore, Mr. Speaker, I want to advise, maybe some people might say that we are young. We have also taken time in this house to go through the answer of this house that do show a number of events that have gone on through this country and how the house businesses of this country in different parliaments have run. Mr. Speaker, there used to be a time in this country that as simple things as the budget writing process of this country used to be dictated by the State House. And my elder, Honorable Alwale, who is also the majority whip, will tell you that it used to happen that the technical teams in the Treasury will devise a budget, write it, without even these houses ever having to have the input in those houses. In fact, my sister who has just stepped out, Senator Dulo, knows very well that one of the reasons why Isiolo County ranks as a marginalized community in this country is because the State House, under the executive orders that forms the section paper number 65, number 10 of 1965, came from State House, and State House indeed forced some counties in this country to be considered as non-performing counties without any input in our economy, to the extent that today Article 204 of our Constitution is all dedicated to deal with issues of marginalization. It is extremely important, Mr. Speaker, that as we start the business of this House, both members of both sides do understand that the independence of Parliament, and more so the independence of the Senate, that some of us are agitating for, is extremely critical for the advancement of your own people, just as is for the people that you perceive are from the opposition side. And as I finish, Mr. Speaker, in the same manner that I want to advocate for the independence of these houses from the executive, the idea that development comes from State House, the notion that has been propagated in the last 1 week in the media by members joining different parts of the coalitions. I also want to say that the Constitution of Kenya is very clear about the arms of government. And these arms of government have got an absolute demonstration of what we call their seat of power. For the executive, the biggest symbol of the executive is the presidency. And in the presidency, Mr. Speaker, one of the symbols that makes us admire the presidency, as a people of Kenya, admire the presidency as a symbol of national unity, admire the presidency as that place with ultimate authority to be able to unite as a nation is the State House. If today Kenyans go to demonstrate or to picket in State House, I don't know what the majority side will call that. We will say the authority of the State House is gone. It will be anarchy, it will be the symbol of that authority that we call the judiciary is indeed our courts. If today we could allow our citizens to go and picket or to go and demonstrate inside any of our courts, then the authorities of the courts cease to exist. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, these houses of parliament, that is the National Assembly as well as the Senate, the symbol of the seat of power of these houses, the authority of these arms of government lie within this particular house. It is very unfortunate that we can even laugh about or even administer a small punishment as just having a senator sent out of the house for coming to picket within this house, for coming to demonstrate, because that was called demonstration. It's nothing less than demonstration within this house. Mr. Speaker, in my own understanding, that is equal to somebody taking this mess out of this house and taking out the authority of this house. I want to urge you, Mr. Speaker, that help us, and as well as the business committee that we're putting together, help this house to be able to remain an authority that is enshrined within the Constitution by not having this house being reduced to some businesses that are indeed enshrined in the Constitution but have got boundaries within where they must happen. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that as members of parliament, as the majority leader had insinuated before, we had our time to go for holidays, we had our time to relax, we had our time to have Christmas, to celebrate New Year. Some Kenyans, Mr. Speaker, did not have even the opportunity of having Christmas. Some Kenyans did not even have opportunity of celebrating New Year's. Not because they did not want to, but they did not have the means and the privileges that we do have in this house to celebrate those that we celebrated. Therefore, we must get back to business and make this house possible to avail equal opportunities for Kenyans to thrive than just surviving. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, as I support this motion.
Thank you, Senator Chirange. What is your intervention?